In my 30 years of watching people, I've learned that he who has great hopes is often defeated by small obstacles. Your greatest dreams are vulnerable. Publius Cyrus. Chapter 1. The Leaky Ship. Trust is a fool's game. To speak your mind, to bare your soul, is to offer your throat to the blade. They call it networking, I call it suicide. Your life is a ship sailing a treacherous sea. Every aspiration, every plan, every secret ambition, you whisper aloud, punctures a hole in its hull. Understood what Machiavelli understood, what most still refuse to see. To reveal your intentions is to invite opposition before the deed is done. He knew that the moment you share your map, your enemies begin charting your shipwreck. They tell you to share your dreams, to network, to build connections through vulnerability. This is a lie. Right now, as you speak, you are bleeding information, draining your strategic advantage, making yourself a target. You are giving away the very leverage you need to win. Think about it. Every time you outline a goal, every time you discuss an emerging opportunity, you provide free intelligence to those who wish you ill. They don't need to infiltrate your circle. You are delivering the blueprint of your next move directly into their hands. This data is priceless, and you are offering it for nothing. Watch what happens when you announce a major career pivot or a bold personal project. The people around you, often those you mistakenly trust, will smile and nod. But beneath the surface, the gears begin to turn. They start to calculate, to strategize, to find ways to negate your progress or even claim credit for your future success. Talking about your plans drains the energy required to execute them. It creates a false sense of accomplishment, a mental shortcut that tricks your brain into believing the work is already half done. You spend your precious willpower on conversation, leaving less for the actual grind. The effort you expend on words could be spent on deeds. The moment you speak your intentions, you also set an expectation. If you announce a big move and then fail to deliver, you don't just fail, you expose your weakness. Your credibility takes a hit. They learn your limits, your breaking points, and where you fall short. Your enemies, whether they're rivals in business or snakes in your personal life, thrive on this information. They wait for you to flinch, to hesitate, to reveal your hand. Your words are their reconnaissance, their intel, their leverage. They use it to predict your next step, to lay their traps, to sabotage you before you even begin. Here's how you eliminate this vulnerability. Shut your mouth, seal your lips, move in the shadows, unannounced and unheard. Let your actions be the first thing anyone sees, not your verbose predictions. Become a ghost, a silent force. When you refuse to broadcast your intentions, you become unpredictable. Your opponents have no data points, no patterns to exploit, no weaknesses to target. They are forced to react to your finished product, not your half-baked dreams. If you announce you're going to build an empire, people will mock, doubt, and try to steal your vision. They will whisper, they will criticize, they will try to convince you to quit. But if you quietly build that empire, brick by silent brick, there is nothing for them to attack until it stands complete, undeniable. This principle of internal control and disciplined silence is not new. The great thinkers of history understood its power. It is about guarding your inner world, protecting your strategic mind. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, recognized the immense power found in restraint. He wrote that you have power over your mind, not outside events, and to realize this is to find strength. What he understood is that every word you speak is an external event. a piece of your inner fortress you willingly expose. Control your tongue. Control your tongue. Control your destiny. The distractions they cut, the drains they sealed, the people they eliminated from their inner circle. That is the cost of victory. That is the price of victory. That is the price of keeping your power. You must learn to keep your own counsel, to trust only your actions, and to let the world witness your results, not your process. But silence is only one wall in your fortress. There's another breach, a subtler leak that drains your influence and makes you appear weak, even when you say nothing at all. What is it? Chapter 2, The Invisible Blade. The invisible blade, your greatest weapon or your deadliest flaw. You betray yourself with every breath. Learn to control the silent truth your body speaks, or perish. It is the leak of your true intent. It's the subtle tell, the unspoken signal that betrays your hand before you've even moved. They will watch your eyes, your posture, the micro-expressions that flash across your face when a certain topic is raised. Your silence becomes irrelevant when your body screams what you're thinking, broadcasting your next step to anyone paying attention. This constant leakage erodes your strategic advantage, making you predictable. Think about the opponent who watches you during a negotiation. You say nothing, yet your pupils dilate slightly when they mention a figure you secretly desire, or your jaw tightens when they hit a nerve you tried to conceal. These tiny, unconscious movements are louder than any declaration. They give away your leverage, showing where your boundaries truly lie and where you are willing to bend. This is why emotional control extends far beyond spoken words. Every twitch, every hesitant glance, every subtle shift in your weight communicates something. Your enemies will catalog these observations, building a psychological profile of your weaknesses and desires. They are looking for the places where you are most exposed, the hidden ambitions or fears that can be exploited. Here's how you seal this invisible leak. Cultivate absolute stillness. Your body must become a mask, impenetrable and unreadable. Master the art of the neutral expression, where your face reveals nothing but calm observation. Let your eyes be steady, your posture relaxed, yet alert, devoid of any fidgeting or unnecessary movement. This isn't about faking a feeling. It's about having no feeling to fake in the first place, or at least no feeling that influences your outer shell. You train yourself to absorb information without reaction, to process threats without a visible flinch. They will prod, they will provoke, they will provoke, they will attempt to find the crack in your armor. But there will be no crack. As Sun Tzu wrote, all warfare is based on deception. He wasn't just talking about grand military strategies, he was talking about controlling the information flow. When you reveal nothing, you become a phantom. Your true strength, your real intentions, your planned maneuvers remain hidden. You deny your opponents the intel they desperately seek. Watch what happens when you present a blank slate. People will project their own fears and desires onto you. They will try to guess your motives, often revealing their own vulnerabilities in the process of trying to understand yours. Your unreadability becomes their burden, forcing them to exhaust their own resources in speculation. The fool blurts out his plans, then reacts visibly when challenged. He wears his heart on his sleeve, telegraphing every emotional blow. He wants others to understand him, to empathize with his journey, making himself a soft target. This need for validation is a weakness, an open wound for predators to exploit. But the master keeps his counsel, not just with his words, but with his entire being. There is no urgency in his eyes, no anxiety in his hands. He understands that the less he gives away, the more power he retains. His silence extends to his very presence, making him an enigma, an unknown force. Lao Tzu taught, "He who knows does not speak, he who speaks does not know." This wisdom applies to the silent language of your body just as much as your voice. True knowledge True power does not need to be demonstrated or explained. It simply exists, silent and potent. It is an inner fortress, not an outward display. When you master this level of invisible control, your actions become truly unpredictable. Your enemies can't counter what they can't anticipate. They can't dismantle a strategy. They can't even perceive. You move like a shadow, striking only when the moment is perfect, with a force they never saw coming. This mastery isn't easy. It demands constant vigilance and a profound understanding of your own inner landscape, but it is essential for anyone who seeks to wield true influence. It's the difference between being a pawn and being the player who controls the board. But there's an even deeper layer to this invisible warfare, a subtle manipulation that turns your enemy's own perceptions against them, making them believe what you want them to believe without ever uttering a single word. What is this hidden trick of the mind? Chapter 3. The Unmoved Stone. The unmoved stone, a fortress, built not of rock, but of quiet will. Learn to wield its power, for your enemies seek only your reaction. It is their true weapon. The hidden trick is the power of the unmoved stone. It's the ability to absorb every blow, every insult, every calculated provocation, without a single visible flinch. They believe they can bait you, hook you, pull you into their muddy arena. They will try to drag you down, twist your words, and expose your weaknesses. But your silence, your calm, is a wall they cannot breach. Every emotional response you give, every sharp retort, every defensive explanation, it all feeds them. It's data. It tells them what triggers you, what wounds are still open, where your vulnerabilities lie. They are mapping your inner landscape, not to understand you, but to find the perfect spot to sink their blade. Your reaction is the consent you unknowingly give them to control the tempo, to dictate the terms of engagement. Think about the last time someone tried to get under your skin. Maybe a passive-aggressive comment, a subtle jab about your past, or a blatant accusation designed to shock. Your pulse quickens. Your mind races, conjuring rebuttals, defenses, counterattacks. This is the moment they wait for. This is the moment they win simply because they got a rise out of you. Here's how you shut down that game. You become impenetrable. When they throw their barbs, their accusations, their manufactured drama, you meet it with a blank stare. Not anger, not fear, not even disdain, just nothing. An empty space where they expected a reaction. You offer no explanation, no defense, no attack. You simply exist, unmoved. This absence of reaction is a weapon. It denies them the satisfaction of their hit. It forces them to question their own power, their own strategy. They expected a fight, a chase, a struggle. When they get a still, quiet lake instead of a raging storm, their carefully crafted trap becomes useless. Their energy drains, their purpose dissolves. Seneca, the Roman philosopher, understood this profound power of inner calm. He wrote that, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality," teaching that our emotional turmoil comes not from events themselves, but from our interpretation and reaction to them. What he understood is that your enemies only have power over you if you give it to them through your responses. By choosing not to react, you reclaim your internal sovereignty. If you announce your plans, people will try to trip you. If you respond to every provocation, people will always know how to manipulate you. The average person feels compelled to justify, to defend their honor, to prove their worth with words. They open their mouth, and with every utterance, they expose more of themselves to their enemies. They believe they are fighting back, but they are just feeding the beast. But if you quietly do the work, if you silently absorb the blows, there's nothing for them to grab onto. There's no weakness to exploit, no emotional vulnerability to twist. Your enemies are left swinging at air, their efforts fruitless, their venom wasted. They lose interest in a target that provides no sport, no return on their investment of malice. The need to provoke, to elicit a reaction, often comes from a place of insecurity within themselves. They are projecting their own internal chaos onto you, hoping to see a reflection of their disorder. They want to drag you into their personal hell so they don't have to be there alone. Sigmund Freud, the pioneer of psychoanalysis, explored how our unconscious minds project our own unresolved issues onto others. He understood that when someone relentlessly tries to provoke you, they might be dealing with their own repressed anger, fear, or inadequacy, externalizing it in an attempt to make sense of their internal world. Your silence, your refusal to mirror their projection, throws their own issues back at them with chilling clarity. They expect you to engage in their drama, to validate their attempts to control you. When you don't, they are left with their own frustrated energy, their own unresolved issues bouncing off your unyielding calm. Your non-reaction becomes a mirror, forcing them to confront the source of their own need for conflict. This is not about bottling up your emotions. It is about choosing when and how to express them. It is about understanding that some battles are won by not fighting at all, by simply denying your adversary the ground they wish to fight on. You become an obstacle that cannot be moved, cannot be broken, because you offer no point of weakness. When you master this, you master yourself. You control your inner world, and by extension, you control the external perception of your strength. They can shout, they can accuse, they can scheme, but against the unmoved stone, their efforts are nothing but wind and dust. Chapter 4: The Silent Spy. The silent spy. The most potent weapon is not a sword but an ear. Learn to wield it, and the world will reveal its secrets. Fail, and be consumed. Beyond simply holding your ground, there is a deeper silence, the silence of the spy. This isn't just about refusing to speak. It's about creating a vacuum, a space where others feel compelled to fill the void with their own words, their own fears, their own intentions. While they talk, you listen. While they project, you absorb. When you fail to adopt this silent surveillance, you operate in the dark. You assume motivations, you guess at strategies, and you react to shadows instead of substance. Your enemies, or even just your competitors, will always know more about your plans than you know about theirs, leaving you vulnerable to every feint, every ambush, every carefully laid trap they spring. Watch what happens when you enter a room and immediately begin to explain your position, justify your actions, or defend your choices. You hand over the blueprint to your mind, detailing your strengths, broadcasting your weaknesses, and revealing the very triggers they can exploit. They don't need to work to understand you. You give them the entire package gift-wrapped. Here's how you turn silence into a weapon of intelligence. You enter interactions with an open mind and a closed mouth. Your goal is not to contribute, but to collect. You observe their body language, the micro-expressions, the subtle shifts in their tone. You listen for what is said, and more importantly, for what is not said. You let them talk themselves into corners, reveal their true feelings, and expose the anxieties that drive them. This is the ultimate information game. They provide the data, you process it, they reveal their hand, you keep yours hidden, you watch for patterns in their behavior, the people they defend, the topics they avoid, the complaints they repeat. These are the threads that lead you to their core beliefs, their hidden agendas, and their most sensitive pressure points. Centuries ago, the great philosopher Socrates taught us the power of questioning, not just to understand the self, but to reveal the ignorance of others. What he understood is that by letting others speak, by gently probing without revealing your own stance, you compel them to unveil their inner landscape. You learn their true understanding, their biases, their weaknesses, all by allowing them to explain themselves. With every unnecessary word they speak, they drain their own power and unwittingly transfer it to you. You gather intel on their leverage points, their insecurities, their unspoken dreams, and the exact limits of their patience. This data isn't just interesting, it's operational. It allows you to predict their next move, anticipate their emotional responses, and understand the real cost of their threats. The danger comes when you break this silent observation too soon. To act on incomplete information is to gamble with your future. To reveal that you know their secrets before the optimal moment is to give them a chance to adjust, to retreat, to build new defenses. Patience is not just a virtue here, it is a tactical necessity. The renowned psychologist Carl Jung spent his life exploring the depths of the human psyche, understanding how people project their inner worlds onto others. When you observe in silence, you don't just hear words, you witness their projections, their shadow selves playing out in their complaints and accusations. You see their hidden fears and desires, not as direct statements, but as reflections in the mirror of their own behavior. Most people believe they are communicating, but they are only broadcasting. They mistake noise for connection, and every shared opinion, every emotional outburst, every personal detail they offer is a vulnerability. They think they are building rapport, but they are actually dismantling their own walls, brick by brick, for you to map. The talker exhausts himself, revealing his true motives and draining his strategic reserves. The silent observer, however, conserves his energy, accumulates knowledge, and waits for the perfect moment to strike. One gives away his power, the other steadily builds theirs. This silent accumulation of intelligence is your invisible armor and your hidden blade. It gives you the foresight to avoid traps and the surgical precision to dismantle your adversaries without a single wasted move. But there is another silent weapon, one that can make your very presence a source of disruption. What is it? Chapter 5, The Unseen Ascent. Silence, your deadliest weapon. We shall explore how the unseen ascent, this quiet cultivation of power, truly builds an empire, one meticulously hidden brick at a time. The unseen ascent is not just about keeping your mouth shut, it is about building an empire in the shadows, crafting your masterpiece away from the prying eyes of the envious and the critical. They tell you to network, to promote yourself, to share your vision. This is a lie, a seductive trap designed to make you reveal your hand before it's even played. Every time you speak of your grand plans, you give your enemies a roadmap to your vulnerabilities. You expose your intentions, inviting scrutiny, doubt, and direct sabotage. They don't need to guess your next move. You hand it to them on a silver platter, letting them prepare their counter-strategy long before you even begin to act. This public declaration drains your resolve, forcing you to defend an idea rather than build it. Watch what happens when someone announces a massive career pivot, a new business idea, or a personal transformation. The skeptics emerge from the woodwork, the envious whisper their doubts. Your own ambition becomes a target, and you spend precious energy defending a future that hasn't even arrived yet. Their objections plant seeds of doubt in your mind, weakening your conviction before you even take the first step. Here's how you use this. The true strategist builds in silence. They lay brick by brick, forge connections, gather resources, and hone their skills away from the noise. Their progress is a private ledger, unknown until it manifests as an undeniable force. This allows for iteration, for mistakes made without public humiliation, for the quiet accumulation of power that blindsides everyone when it finally reveals itself. If you shout your intentions from the rooftops, people will wait for you to fail, or worse, actively work to ensure it. They will find ways to trip you up, to spread rumors, to undermine your efforts. But if you quietly build your fortress, there's nothing for them to attack until the walls are impenetrable and the drawbridge is already up, leaving them with nothing but the shock of your sudden undeniable presence. Leonardo da Vinci, a man who understood the power of both creation and discretion, once remarked that nothing strengthens authority so much as silence. What he understood is that your words are finite. They can be twisted, used against you, or simply dilute the potent energy of your intention. Action, however, speaks a language that is unassailable, especially when it emerges from a period of deliberate quiet. Your focus belongs entirely to the execution, not the explanation. Let them underestimate you. Let them underestimate you, let them believe you are doing nothing of consequence. This misdirection is a shield, protecting your true efforts from their interference. They will not see the hours you put in, the sacrifices you make, the careful calculations that underpin your every move. Think about Abraham Lincoln, a man often underestimated, but whose quiet determination reshaped a nation. He didn't broadcast every strategic maneuver during the Civil War. His strength lay in his steady, often silent, pursuit of his objectives, allowing his actions and their eventual impact to speak for themselves. He knew that some battles are won not by grand pronouncements, but by relentless, unyielding progress made in the quiet corridors of power, far from the public's fickle gaze. This silent, relentless building creates an unstoppable momentum. It allows you to develop an advantage that is not just recognized, but felt. It is the difference between a loud declaration of war and the sudden, decisive strike of an army that no one knew was mobilizing. The former invites counter-preparation. The latter ensures overwhelming victory. There is no debate, no argument, no opportunity for them to intervene when your success is already a concrete reality. You present them with a finished product, an achieved goal, a new position of power that was constructed entirely out of their sight. The silence is not merely a lack of words, it is a strategic void that you fill with undeniable accomplishment. The shock and awe of your sudden emergence become a weapon in themselves. They create an aura of competence and mystery, making others wonder what else you have been quietly building, what other moves you are preparing in the shadows. This perception alone can destabilize your adversaries, making them hesitate, second-guess, and doubt their own understanding of the game. This silent, relentless building creates an unstoppable momentum, but there's another unseen force, one that can make your very absence a weapon. What is it? Chapter 6, The Phantom Threat. The phantom threat. The true weapon is not what you say, but what you leave unsaid. Master this, and control their every fear. The phantom threat. This is the power of the unsaid, the weaponization of deliberate ambiguity. Most people believe clarity is strength, that you must lay out your cards. They want to be understood. This desire for validation is a weakness exploited by strategists. When you offer no clear path, no definite statement, you force opponents to project their deepest fears onto the void. Their minds race, building countless scenarios, each worse than the last. They imagine your resources limitless, your plans intricate, your patience endless. This mental torture drains their energy, diverts focus, and erodes confidence before you even move. Think about a rival who hears whispers of your new project, but knows nothing concrete. They don't know its scale, purpose, or target. They can't calculate your budget, timeline, or partners. This lack of data breeds paranoia, as they struggle to fill blanks, always assuming the worst case. Your strategy is simple. Refuse to clarify. Never confirm, never deny, never explain. Let rumors swirl, let speculation intensify. Your silence becomes a mirror reflecting their anxieties. This isn't deception, it's strategic omission, denying them the solid ground for a coherent counter-strategy. Watch what happens when they are forced to fight ghosts. They will waste time and money preparing for threats that may not exist or for wrong versions of your plan. Their resources stretch thin, chasing every imagined possibility, while you remain centered, conserving strength. Their fear of the unknown becomes a cage. This is what Napoleon Bonaparte understood deeply about war. He famously said, "Never interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake." He grasped that allowing your adversary to fall prey to their own miscalculations and fears without correction is superior to direct confrontation. Their self-inflicted wounds are often the most devastating. The foolish rush to explain, to justify, to reveal their hand, believing it gains trust. They seek to manage perceptions by laying them bare. But the moment you define your boundaries, you also define your limitations, handing adversaries the exact blueprints to attack your weaknesses. There is nothing to defend if there is nothing to defend, if there is nothing to clarify. The power of the unsaid means you remain undefined, a shapeless threat that adapts. Opponents cannot prepare for what they cannot grasp. They cannot counter a strategy whose existence they are unsure of. Your ambiguity forces them to play defense against every conceivable angle, exhausting them before the real game even begins. This psychological pressure is a potent weapon. It forces them into constant vigilance, where every shadow holds a potential threat. Their own thoughts become their greatest enemy, as they construct elaborate scenarios of your moves. You don't need to attack directly. You simply cultivate fertile ground for their self-destruction. Friedrich Nietzsche spoke of how we create our own values and meanings in a world without inherent truth. He understood that when you deny people a clear truth about your intentions, they will desperately create their own. This manufactured reality, born of their fears and biases, will almost certainly work against them. They become trapped in a self-constructed labyrinth of fear while you observe. Your refusal to engage, to provide the answers they crave, makes them desperate. They will try to provoke you, to draw you out, to force clarification. Do not fall for it. Hold your line, let their frustration grow, let their panic build. Every attempt to bait you is merely another sign of their weakening position. This isn't about dishonesty, it's about being strategically opaque. Information, even simple confirmation, is a resource you control. By withholding it, you compel your enemies to spend their own mental and emotional capital trying to extract it, or worse, trying to guess it. They will drain themselves fighting a battle in their own head. So cultivate the phantom threat. Let your silence speak volumes. Let your absence create immense pressure. It is a powerful form of psychological warfare, where your greatest weapon is the unknown, and your opponent's greatest enemy is their own imagination. But what if the pressure they feel is not just from your silence, but from a calculated act of withdrawal? What happens when you disappear from their sight entirely, only to strike from unexpected angles? Chapter 7. The Sudden Strike. The sudden strike, a maneuver of profound deception. You vanish, letting their fear paint your absence, while sharpening the blade for a blow they will never see coming. This is where you execute the sudden strike. You vanish from their awareness, not in retreat but to prepare the unannounced blow. Your adversaries are left to speculate, to fill the void with their own anxieties, while you are meticulously building the force required to dismantle their position entirely. This quiet preparation is a weapon in itself, creating a false sense of security, a belief that you have either given up or simply disappeared. But your disappearance is a feint. The real danger is the silence that precedes the storm, the calm before the devastating impact. They expect a reaction, a verbal jab, a public display of frustration. Instead, they get nothing. This lack of feedback becomes its own torment, pushing them to make mistakes, to overplay their hand, to reveal their true weaknesses. They will never see the true threat until it is already upon them, shattering their carefully constructed defenses. Watch what happens when a rival expects you to engage in a petty conflict, to defend yourself against their latest attack. They prepare their arguments, sharpen their insults, ready their allies for a public spat. Instead of responding, you use that energy to quietly acquire a critical asset they needed, or to forge a powerful alliance they never saw coming. You don't address their noise, you simply remove the ground beneath their feet. Here's how you orchestrate this move. You identify the critical leverage point, the single action that can fundamentally shift the dynamic in your favor. This target might be financial, relational, or reputational. You gather your resources, consolidate your power, and refine your strategy in absolute secrecy. Every move is calculated, every resource accounted for, every contingency planned for, without a single word of your intent reaching their ears. Then, when the timing is perfect, when their guard is down, when they are most distracted by their own self-importance, you strike, It is a single decisive action. You do not explain, you do not negotiate, you do not gloat. You simply execute the move that makes their entire position untenable, rendering their previous efforts, their boasts, and their manipulations utterly meaningless. The damage is done before they even register the attack. Contrast this with the fool who announces their intentions. They talk endlessly about their grand plans, their coming victories, the revenge they will inflict. They telegraph every move, giving their enemies ample time to prepare, to counter, to build their own defenses. They confuse intention with execution, believing that merely speaking about power is the same as wielding it. They crave the applause before the battle is won, and often before it has even begun. Your way is different. You cultivate the art of the hidden hand. Your actions are the only announcement, and by the time your adversaries realize what has happened, it is already too late to respond effectively. They are left reeling, trying to understand how the landscape changed so dramatically, while you are already moving on to secure your gains, leaving them to pick through the wreckage of their own complacency. What Mike Tyson understood is that everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. He didn't just understand the physical impact, he grasped the psychological devastation of an unexpected, powerful blow. When you strike without warning, you don't just defeat an opponent, you dismantle their belief in their own control, their own strategy, their own ability to predict and react. You render their plans obsolete in a single brutal moment. The true power of this sudden strike lies not just in its surprise, but in the sheer efficiency of its execution. It bypasses all the usual back and forth, the negotiation, the pointless arguments. It creates a new reality instantaneously, leaving your adversaries with no viable counter-strategy. They can only react to what has already happened, not what is about to happen, not what is about to happen. This puts them permanently on the defensive, playing catch-up to a game you've already won. As Winston Churchill famously said, never give in, never, 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 great or small, large or petty, never give in except to convictions of honor and good sense. What he understood is that sustained, unyielding resolve, often behind the scenes, is what truly wears down an opponent. Your silent, unwavering preparation and the sudden, decisive strike are the ultimate expression of this relentless conviction, refusing to yield to trivial skirmishes or announced threats. This unannounced move isn't about winning a single skirmish. It's about ending the entire war with one decisive blow. It's about leveraging your silence and your calculated absence to deliver maximum impact. Chapter 8. The Silent Decree. Silent decree. They crave your reaction. Let them thirst. This is how you dissolve the threat entirely, dictating terms without a single uttered word. This unannounced move isn't about winning a single skirmish. It's about ending the entire war with one decisive blow. It's about leveraging your silence and your calculated absence to deliver maximum impact. This final stage of control isn't merely about holding your tongue. It's about shaping reality, dictating terms, and ultimately dissolving the threat entirely by refusing to engage on their battlefield. It is the ultimate expression of power, unyielding and absolute. Your enemy thrives on your reaction. They bait you, they provoke you, they whisper lies or spread rumors, all in an attempt to pull you into their chaotic arena. They want you to explain, to defend, to justify, because every word you utter gives them ammunition. Every public response is a concession, an admission that their tactics have found their mark. Think about the boxer who wastes energy swinging at air, exhausted by a phantom opponent. Your silence makes you that phantom. It denies them the satisfaction of a visible hit, the data point of your flinch. They exhaust themselves chasing shadows, creating narratives in a vacuum you deliberately leave empty. Here's how you finalize their destruction. You become an information black hole. You cease to feed any interaction, any gossip, any insinuation with even a flicker of acknowledgement. You let their projections and their manufactured drama simply fall into the void, unanswered, unaddressed, unvalidated. The superior man is modest in his speech, but exceeds in his actions, as Confucius taught. What he understood is that true power manifests not in verbose pronouncements or defensive rebuttals, but in the quiet, undeniable force of your results. When you remain silent, your actions become the only truth, unpolluted by the noise and distortions your enemies try to create. Watch what happens when you refuse to play their game. Their initial outrage transforms into confusion, then desperation. They ramp up their efforts, throwing more accusations, more provocations, only to be met by a wall of nothingness. Their own energy starts to drain. Their momentum collapses because there is no opposing force to push against. If you announce your strategy or defend your position, people will pick it apart, dissect it, and find its weaknesses. They will feel invited to participate in your decisions, to offer unsolicited advice, or to actively sabotage your plans. Your words create a point of attack, a target for every critic and rival. But if you quietly execute your vision, if you move with the precision of a surgeon operating in perfect silence, there's nothing for them to grab onto. There's no argument to win, no statement to refute. Your progress becomes an undeniable fact, a force that simply exists, making their resistance futile. Mahatma Gandhi demonstrated this principle on a global scale. He showed the world that true strength isn't found in loud declarations or violent retaliation, but in the quiet, unyielding power of resolve. His strategy of nonviolent resistance was a masterclass in silent defiance, disarming oppressors by refusing to meet them on their terms, forcing them to confront their own actions in a vacuum of protest. Silence is a source of great strength, a hidden reservoir of focus and intent. It keeps your plans guarded, your vulnerabilities concealed, and your energy conserved for the decisive moment. It allows you to observe, to learn, to adapt, while your enemies broadcast their every move, their every fear, their every mistake. This is why silence is the ultimate weapon. It is the absence of noise that reveals the weakness of others. It is the space you create that forces them to fill it with their own blunders. It is the invisible shield that deflects every attack, leaving the aggressor punching at air. Your silent decree is more binding than any spoken oath, more devastating than any public condemnation. It signals an end to negotiation, an end to explanation, an end to any quarter given. It communicates an unshakable resolve that simply removes them from your path. They will learn the hard way that when you speak the least, you achieve the most. When you give them nothing, they lose everything. This isn't just about winning, it's about the complete neutralization of any force that stands against you. From this moment on, you cease to be a participant in their drama. You become the silent architect of your own victory, the unseen hand that dismantles their defenses. Your silence is your power. Use it to watch them drown in their own noise.